This time on Psychic Investigators. When a young man goes missing, police suspect foul play.
There's no reason for him to run away.
They have a suspect, but no body.
The family was in shock.
A detective turns to a psychic for help. Her visions reveal an unimaginable evil.
And now she's telling me there are multiple victims.
Can a psychic help the police capture one of the worst killers in U.S. history? John Wayne Gacy. Des Plaines, Illinois. A byway for commuters who make the daily trek into nearby Chicago. A far cry from the crime and violence of the big city. Or so it seemed. On December 11th, 1978, high school student Robert Piest is finishing his shift at a local drugstore. His mother arrives to pick him up. Robert asks her to wait a few minutes while he goes to the parking lot at the back of the building to meet a man about a summer job. He never returns. The family files a missing persons report that night. It lands on the desk of Chief of Detectives Joe Kozensak.
The statement was made that this young man was going to talk to another unknown person about some summer work. Here's a young man who all of a sudden disappears. The family was in shock.
Robert, a student at West Main High School, is popular. A gymnast, an aspiring photographer.
Rob was a good guy. He was funny, creative. He was a good friend.
He's doing well in school. He's social. He's a great kid. There's no reason for him to run away.
And when you start adding these things together, there's more to this than just a young man who walked away from his part-time job.
3 days go by, and still, no sign of Robert.
All of the speculation as to what could have happened started coming out. It was evident to all of us that something was very, very wrong. Posters were put out all over the place. We were all calling each other all the time, is there any word, is there any word? We were anxious.
It was a really emotional time because a lot of these people were in fear of being harmed or murdered, that maybe they would be the victim.
With no other lead, they turn their attention to the man Robert told his mother he was going to meet.
He was actually a person who was, in fact, brought into this drugstore by the owners to do certain kinds of remodeling work.
All police have is the contractor's first name and a last name they're not sure how to spell.
The Chicago Police Department had, at that time, an alpha file. If you didn't know how to spell someone's name, but you kind of had the pronunciation of it, you could look in this file. This is not computers. I'm talking about literally taking your little fingers and going through the cards. Based on that information, they actually came up with a name. His name was John Wayne Gacy.
At first glance, John Wayne Gacy is a model citizen. He belongs to local service clubs. He entertains children as Pogo the Clown. But he also has a dark side. Gacy has a prior arrest in Iowa for a violent sexual assault.
And when we heard that, the hair literally stood up on the back of our necks. While I was attempting to get a search warrant, other officers were interviewing Gacy. Once he found out we did not have a search warrant, he got real belligerent. He denied ever talking or seeing Robert. We felt he wasn't telling us the truth.
24 hours later, the search warrant comes through.
On our first search warrant, we found IDs that belonged to other young men, jewelry and belt buckles and different things that didn't belong to Gacy. And we found all kinds of other types of sexually orientated materials, books and magazines and things. even though we had these items, there was nothing there that would allow us to arrest Gacy. We had to cut him loose. That was painful for me because I felt that this man was responsible for the disappearance of this young man.
But tracing the IDs will take time. And with Robert missing 5 days, the detective is at a dead end. A fellow officer suggests something radical. A psychic.
I decided I would ask the police chief what he thought about that idea. And he said, don't advertise it, but go ahead and do it.
Kozensak makes an appointment with the psychic in nearby Rolling Meadows for that very night. Carol Broman, now deceased, was a well-respected psychic investigator who worked with police on many cases.
She would get feelings by touching either a person or an object. She would pick up energy. She also called it her little voice.
I mean, it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of an eerie night.
We had a room upstairs where my mom did her readings. She called it her library. Joe had gone into the room with my mom and shut the door. I noticed that he was very, very nervous, very guarded.
I sat down in this little room with her all her candles burning. She said, did you bring anything that belonged to this young man?
The detective has brought Robert's camera in the hopes the psychic can use it to locate him. He has also brought a tape recorder to document the session.
She took the camera into her hands, and immediately you could tell that she was feeling something extraordinary.
I'm getting sick to my stomach. There's some type of torture. He isn't alive.
The psychic said this young man is dead. And I was like, I mean, the chill just ran through me from my head to my feet.
There's a construction site affiliated with this man. He asked him to come back or to meet him somewhere. He was tricked somehow. The kid doesn't think he's dead. He's got marks where he was tied.
A construction site. Could the psychic be talking about John Wayne Gacy? But it's what she sees next that shakes the detective to his core.
This guy is sick. I mean, he's really sick. You're going to find 6 or 7 others in the same place. They're buried.
I was dealing with this one missing person's case, and now she's telling me there's more. She said there are multiple victims.
When Joe had left that night and my mom came out of the room, she just was very upset. She was very white. She said that she had felt sick to her stomach.
And the part that really got to me was when she said, Robert doesn't know he's dead. And that bothered me a lot. I envisioned Robert wandering off in the Netherlands someplace.
The detective has more questions than answers. But his biggest problem? How is he going to explain all this to his men?
I try to maintain my cop state of mind because you don't want to be duped how do you tell this information to your investigators? You know, do you go back to the police station and say, I just saw a psychic, and here's what she said?
Kozenczak tells his men the psychic's information came from an anonymous tip. The investigation into John Wayne Gacy kicks into high gear.
Gacy was under 24-hour-a-day surveillance by a team of officers. And then you had policemen who were interviewing former employees of Gacy's.
Police discover some of these employees are missing, and they make a crucial link. These names are among the ID cards seized in their first search.
Here's 3 or 4 or 5 ex-employees of Gacy's mysteriously disappeared.
Could they be dead? Kozenczak remembers the psychic's visions. Multiple bodies buried.
That's when it just started to come together for us.
Meanwhile, Gacy knows he's being watched. Far from being afraid, he seems to enjoy the attention. He even invites the police to dinner in his house. One officer notes a strange smell coming from the basement. 48 hours later, the round-the-clock surveillance pays off when Gacy slips up.
The surveillance team that was following Gacy watched him sell some marijuana to a gas station attendant. So they grabbed him.
With Gacy in custody and armed with evidence of more missing men, the police obtain a second search warrant. They believe the key to the missing men may lie in the house with the strange smell. They start in the basement.
I went to the house, and I opened the door, and I stood in the dark, right by the trap door. And 2 Cook County Sheriff's evidence technicians jumped down into this trap door. Within minutes, they said, Lieutenant, we've got 3 bodies down here. And I was like, oh my God, it's true, everything's true.
What they find is a house of horrors. Multiple bodies buried in the basement. Every day, the body count rises. In custody, Gacy provides the grim details of how he tortured his victims. His weapon of choice, a garrote, which he used to strangle them. Of the 27 bodies unearthed, some still have rope around their neck. The multiple bodies, the MO. It seems the psychic was right about it all.
It fit very, very closely to what Carol said. And the amazing thing is, we didn't know this. She told us.
News of the gruesome discovery spreads like wildfire.
It turned into a media circus. There were news people there from all over the world.
When we were taking the bodies out of Gacy's house, it was surreal. How can there be so many bodies in this house and nobody know it?
Todd Wessel covers the story for the local paper.
As the day unfolded and the week unfolded, the horror just became almost unimaginable.
The police examine the bodies, but Robert Piest is not among them.
It was obvious to us that the condition of the bodies that were underneath this house had been there a long, long time, and we still had not accomplished finding Robert's body.
Impressed by Carol Broman's revelations, the police ask her to help locate Robert's body, but she can't see where he is. The police are at another dead end.
Everybody believed that they were going to find him, and they didn't.
There was a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty in the minds of the community. People wondered what happened to Robert. Where was he? Could he still be alive?
The police are sure Piest is dead. But where is his body?
As each day went by, it got worse and worse because there was no answer, nothing for us to hang on to. It was very important they find the body.
The police and the family finally get their answer. John Wayne Gacy admits to killing Robert Piest and tells how he disposed of the body.
Gacy told us that he had thrown Robert's body into a river.
He says he threw the body off the I-55 bridge into the Des Plaines River. The area is searched, but with no luck. By now, the current could have taken Piest's body anywhere. And there's another problem.
It was just hard to observe anything in the river because the river was frozen. We had to wait.
But it's been 6 weeks since their son disappeared, and the family doesn't want to wait. Elizabeth Piest reads an article in Reader's Digest about a psychic whose specialty is finding missing bodies. Dorothy Allison, who is now deceased.
Dorothy Allison was quite prominent as a psychic on the East Coast and was in fact involved with the FBI working on a case. Robert's mother asked me to contact Dorothy Allison to see if she might come to Chicago to help search for her son's body.
Detective Kozensak contacts the psychic at her home in Nutley, New Jersey.
She immediately started telling me where Robert's body was located at. I was very skeptical.
Your victim's body is located near a place where there's a strong smell of petroleum oil. I'm seeing a motel. The Manor Motel. I'm seeing the body near a cemetery. The sign says Evergreen.
Now that was good. And this woman was sitting in New Jersey, and she's telling me about a Manor Motel.
Oil. The Manor Motel. Evergreen Cemetery. Obscure landmarks near where Gacy dumped the body. Intrigued, the detective asks the psychic to come in person to zero in on the location. In March, Detective Kozensak drives Dorothy Allison to the area. The psychic first guides them off the highway.
As you come off the interstate, there are storage tanks. And if you roll your windows down, I mean, you're like inundated with the smell of petroleum.
The psychic directs him to take another exit.
The exit you get off is a Manor Motel. And off to my left was a cemetery. And there was a great big marble slab in the front of this place. And it said, Evergreen.
The psychic asks the detective to stop the car and points to an area along the river where she believes the body will be found. But with the water still frozen, the search must wait. Dorothy Allison returns to New Jersey on another case, but not before one last prediction.
She wrote something down on this piece of paper, and she said, "This is the day you're going to find Robert." And I stuck it in my folder, closed it, put it in a desk drawer, and essentially forgot about it.
The spring thaw, and the search for Robert Piest can begin again. Out of the blue, the detective gets a phone call.
And it was the sheriff of Grundy County, and he said, "Lieutenant, you better get down here. We found a body floating along the shore of the river." The location where Robert's body had finally been found was just about a quarter mile away from the cemetery.
The psychic not only predicted where Robert would be found, but also when. Detective Kozensak remembers the note.
and it said April 9th. What she predicted in January actually came true to the letter on April 9th of 1979.
Dorothy Allison's last prediction bears out. The body of Robert Piest can finally be returned to his loved ones.
That was an answer. After all of that time, that was at least something.
At that point, I got sad. He really was gone. And Gacy really did kill him.
More questions are answered during John Wayne Gacy's sensational trial, and the psychic's visions prove eerily accurate. On the night of December 11th, Robert Piest went to meet with Gacy about a summer job. The prosecution case was that Gacy lured Robert to his home, where he entertained him with a set of trick handcuffs from his clown act. Once Robert was comfortable getting in and out of them, Gacy upped the ante. He cuffed Robert's hands behind his back and told him to try again. But this time, he adjusted the catch. Robert was trapped. He then tortured and sexually abused him and strangled him with a garrote. On March 7th, 1980, John Wayne Gacy is convicted on 33 counts of murder, including Robert Piest's. On May 10th, 1994, after years of appeals, Gacy is executed by lethal injection. Without the help of psychics Carol Broman and Dorothy Allison, one of America's worst serial killers may never have been stopped. And Robert Piest, never found.
I thought my mom's contribution to the Piest case was that she pretty much solved it.
Actually, I became a believer in psychics. If you can give some form of comfort and peace to the family of someone who went missing, and you can do that by using a psychic, then you do it.